Hi, welcome to Liftoff. My name is Stephanie Newton. I'm here with my pastor, author, speaker, and conference leader, Brother Jacky Connell.
Wow, Steph, how exciting it is to be able to be a part of Liftoff again. I love doing Liftoff. I hope and pray that it's helping people that are tuning in and watching the Liftoff series. We certainly are encouraged when we hear back from them and they let us know that this is making a difference in their leadership as they engage in what we're talking about. I was thinking the other day, when we do Liftoff, a lot of this information is based off things that we have done that you don't have to make the same mistakes that we've done. You can kind of listen to what all's going on, what we've learned, and hopefully that little bit of information will cause you to navigate your leadership in a way that you can just avoid some of the pitfalls and be encouraged in and through the Liftoff series that we're doing.
Absolutely. Well, today we're in part 2 of our series, 6 Ministry Lessons, Everything You Ever Wanted to Know and No One Ever Told You. And so over the next couple months, we'll be looking at things about how to communicate effectively, how to lead a meeting that people want to go to, and a whole lot more. So make sure that you tune in for each and every episode in the series. Today, our topic is a thing that every leader wants to know: how to enlist a leader the right way.
Wow, that's, man, I'm telling you what, we'll write a book on this one, because I think all of us have, as leaders, we have the right intent of enlisting leaders that we want to empower them to be successful, and we bring them on our team to help us move from point A to point B. And probably all of us have felt at times, man, I did a terrible job. I chose the wrong person, or I just didn't do a good job setting them up for success. And so I think some of the preventive things that we could do as leaders to help us ensure us that we're doing the best that we can do in leadership enlistment so that we have more victories than we do failures. I think there's some things that certainly I can speak into when it comes to that. And if you've got a pencil or something to write with, or maybe you got a great memory, I want to give you 7 quick things that I believe will help you in just getting ready for that as you begin to think about, I need a leader to enlist on my team. And so the first thing I would say, because we are talking about church leadership, and this almost seems non-essential or so elementary that a lot of times we ourselves neglect to look at this first one. But if you are a church leader and you're going to enlist a leader, you need to make sure, number one, they're a Christian. And that's very important.
It helps.
Yeah, it really does. And I don't want to simplify that so much so that you go, oh, Brother Jacky, that's just kind of a given. You know what? I get that, but let's make sure that if we're going to enlist people on our leadership team in churches, that we take that appropriate time to just take them through, share with me your testimony, how you met Jesus. And just ensure that the people that you're bringing on board with you share that Christian experience that we all need to have as Christian leaders. So don't make the mistake of just thinking, oh, this is a great leader and I want them on my staff at my church, or I want them to be on my team. Make sure that you cross that first thing. Get that off the list. Tell me if you're a Christian. Tell me about your experience with Jesus. So number 1, make sure they're a Christian. Number 2, look at their character. You want to make sure that you bring people on board with your leadership team that have impeccable character. They've got integrity about them, and there's a lot of things to talk about with that, but I really think that that's valuable. So make sure that they're Christian, look at their character. The third C is make sure they're courteous. that people will warm up to them, that they can warm up to people and make sure that they have that attribute about their leadership, that when they walk in a room, they know how to speak to people, they smile, they present themselves well, and they're courteous. Because you know what, a lot of leaders fail to recognize how important that is to gain momentum. If you're going to be a leader, you got to have followers, and if you're not courteous, you can really blow that right out of the starting block. So that's another one. And then compatibility. Making sure that they're compatible with your vision, making sure they're compatible with where you want to go. You don't want to bring somebody on your team that's going to pull against you. That if you want to go this direction and they want to go that direction, or they're just simply not compatible, your personalities don't mesh or whatever that may be. But compatibility is valuable in preparing for that. And then the next one is make sure that they have consistency. I think that is so important. You don't want to just look for a leader that has peak leadership victories. You want to make sure you got a person that's consistent in their personality, in their attitudes, in their, how they function. Consistent leadership gains momentum with people, and it causes people to respect that leader. So make sure that they are consistent. And then competency. Make sure that they're competent with the assignment that you're going to give them. And I think that competency, we talked about this a little bit the last time that we met together, but they need to have a level of competency in order to execute what you want to bring them on to lead. And then finally, and I like this one, and this is one that I had to give a lot of thought to in kind of summing up these 7 things. But Stephanie, I think that this one right here is kind of like, if you can really make this one happen in lieu of all the other 6, then you've really got a winner in the person that you're talking to. And that is, are they coachable? Can they enlarge themselves? Will they follow your direction? Can you instruct them? If you get a person on your leadership team that is a know-it-all, they're going to become very stagnant in your vision. So the person you bring on needs to be able to be coached. And I like to use that word in lieu of enlarging themselves. Can they grow? Can they be coached to be better than they are? And they've got to have the right attitude to do that. So, Steph, I want to give it to you again. They got to be a Christian. You got to look at their character. They need to be courteous. They need to have compatibility. They need to be consistent. They need to have competency. And they need to be coachable. And I believe if you look at all of those and just kind of look at that before you bring the person on, before you bring it on, you have to do a leadership evaluation about that person before you sign on with them. And so that's where I think is a good start, just looking at those 7 things.
So those are the things that you kind of look for as you're personally selecting a leader for a ministry or
Absolutely.
for part of our church. Well, once you think you've found a quality leader, Pastor, then how do you approach them about the opportunity the right way?
Well, we have a thing that, and I would say this about whether you're enlisting volunteer leaders or whether you're enlisting people to come on your staff, as a leader, you got to know what you're asking them to do. And I think that part of that is sitting down prior to meeting with a person and having a defined ministry description or an assignment description for you to look at, and making sure that you're specific in what you're asking them to do. Now, I have learned that there is a starting point, but as you grow in ministry, as you grow that person, that definition may change. You can always add to it, but you got to have a starting point. And I think getting clarity on the starting point is valuable. And it can be very simple or it can be very complicated, whatever you feel like you need to do. But I think that you have to put your thoughts down as to what you want this person to do, and being able to sit down and intelligently talk to them about their assignment. And so I think that that is valuable for you. So many people, as common as this should be, so many people don't do that, especially in churches. They just kind of fly by the seat of their britches. We believe that you need to be more defined than that, and we feel like that helps you sit down across the table with somebody and talk to them. And in thinking about that, I think that in looking at what you're trying to do is setting up a meeting with them, an official meeting with them, and bringing them in. Don't meet them in the hall and talk about, hey, you know what, I got this great idea. Would you like to do that? Boy, that can get wadded up real quick. And I think that so many leaders and so many churches do it that way. And you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you're setting the person up for success, not failure. And part of that is a lot of that is on us as leaders as we engage to enlist them. So defining a ministry description. And then what we do is we do a thing called a potential position profile. And I think that this is probably one of the most genius things that we come up with. And what I try to tell people is in your ministry, whether it be you're bringing people on your staff, or whether you're staffing a volunteer, a group of volunteers in your ministry. Now I want you to listen, because this will really help you. I want you to first of all draw your blueprint with no person in your mind. In other words, if you've got a department or you've got a function or whatever it is, you need to draw your blueprint. And your blueprint, you need to look at what you're trying to do, and you need to look at what we call positions on your blueprint. So draw your blueprint out. Sit down and think about it. Look at it and look and ask yourself, do I need 5 people, or do I need 6 people? Do I need 10 people to execute this plan? And if you draw your blueprint, it kind of makes sense, because now you're thinking it through based off what you're trying to achieve. So you would draw your blueprint, and then you would do what we call a position profile without any person in your mind. Don't think about the person. Did you hear that? Don't think about the person. Think about what you want to accomplish and what it's going to take to accomplish that. And you would look at your blueprint and do a position profile. For example, you may need on this particular project or whatever, you may need 3 greeters, and you may need 5 other people to do other things. Well, what are you going to ask those people to do? What is that position? And you identify it on your blueprint. Then you write your position profile. For example, what is this position? What is the description of this position? Who's going to supervise this person? How many days are they going to have to commit to do this? How many hours are you asking them to give? Do you want them to do this for a year, or do you want them to do this for 10 years? Or do you want them to do it for a month? Are you going to train them? What is your expectation of this? And what kind of skills does that position have to have? Do they need to have high people skills? Or do they need high technical skills? Do they need to have high energy? Are they going to be visible? Do they need to be able to have a vocal projection? Do they need to be outgoing? And you think all that through. And as you think it through, once you draw your blueprint and you get your position profile in order, now you're ready to sit back and go, who is the person that I need to talk to accomplish this? Now you can bring them in, sit down across the table with them, and say to them, Bob, I've got this position that I need somebody to help me with. And Bob, this is what it is. And Bob, you're going to have to give 4 hours a week to the church. And you're going to have to be here on this day. And you're going to have to go through a training. And you're going to report to me. And this is what we want you to do, and this is what we expect from this. Are you willing to do that? Now, Steph, what that does is that puts all the cards on the table. What is the difference of this? If I just meet Bob in the hall and go, Bob, you want to be on the servant team? Yeah, I want to be on the servant team. Great. And then Bob signs up, and then all of a sudden, Bob realizes, oh, you want me to do what? You want me to be here 5 hours a week at the church? You want me to show up when? You didn't tell me I had to go to 3 trainings to do this. I did not know that this is what you wanted me to do. Now we've got conflict. And Bob doesn't know, he didn't know he was signing up for this. And you had all these expectations that you didn't communicate with him. Now we got frustration. Now everybody fails. And the ministry is hindered from going forward simply because as a leader, you didn't do your homework and you didn't do a good job of writing the blueprint for the leader that you're looking for. So there's a lot of that needs to happen prior to ever meeting with a person. So as a leader, when you meet with that person, you can communicate effectively and efficiently and accurately. Now everybody knows what's going on. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So the position profile is essential in executing leadership enlistment for you as a leader.
I think that when we do the things like we grab people in hallways, that what we communicate is that we don't value them as a person enough to actually sit down and talk through it. And we cheapen the position as well, that it's really not that big a deal. I don't really care if you do it. Whereas the expectation of excellence, when you sit down, you've thought it out,
Absolutely.
You've explained it well, sets the standard of this is something that I care about as a leader, and I also care about you as a leader, and I want it to be a good fit for both of us. And if it's not, that's okay.
Sure.
This is what we're looking for.
Sure.
So I think it sets the expectation on the front end
Absolutely.
of how you proceed either way.
You're exactly right, and you said it well, because that eliminates a lot of problems here. You can really save yourself a lot of headaches over there, because whoever you enlist, you have to live with. And man, if you enlist somebody that goes, man, I didn't, and then they're not willing to give that time because they've got family or other responsibilities or what, make it clear. Just make your definition clear as to what you're asking those people to do. And again, what Stephanie said is true, is that it sends a message to people when you do it this way. This is not a fly-by-night thing. This is important, and you're important, and the assignment's important, and I think it does add value to it.
I think enlistment is one area that every leader wants to get it right in. You go to a conference, that's the most popular topic that people go for. And I think there's several areas where maybe as leaders we tend to not get it right. We either get paralyzed and we don't select a leader, or we do a poor job of selecting a leader because we haven't looked at the list of C's that Pastor gave us, or we don't approach the opportunity the right way, we treat it poorly. But one area that I don't think I've ever heard a conference or another speaker talk about, and the next question on our list today is, how about follow-up, Pastor? We don't typically think about follow-up in the enlistment process, but when you say that follow-up is a very important part of that process.
Absolutely. Follow-up is essential. What doesn't get measured doesn't get done. And I think that you have to set a expectation oh, we're going to get back together again. Now let me go back to this enlistment process of enlisting a leader for a moment. Let's talk about, you've got your blueprint laid out, you've got your position profile done, and now you're about ready to meet with Bob. Bob comes into your office or wherever, at the coffee shop or wherever, and you've got everything laid out. You've got a copy, you give Bob a copy. Bob, let's talk about this. And you talk through this thing. You've got to realize that this is an interview. They're interviewing you and you're interviewing them. At that stage, you have the right, as Bob communicates with you, in your mind as a leader, you have the right to calculate what's going on, to say, you know what, in my mind, Bob may not be the right guy for this, even though he thinks he is. It gives you an opportunity to have a conversation about this and get out of it before you get in it. And Bob may be great somewhere else, but in this one, you just got this something that's going, this isn't the right fit. So you can head off a lot of problems right there. So you got to realize that when you're doing this part of it, it's the interview. But once you sign them up, once Bob says yes and you say yes, then you have to set up points of accountability. And I highly recommend that you set up a time where you bring them back together and you go, let's talk about it. Now, with our staff, you know this, and everybody else around here knows this. The way we do it is I set up a consistent monthly meeting with each staff person that comes in behind the closed doors, and I'm able to say, let's talk about your area of ministry, and they bring in what they're up to, and we can talk about that. And every staff person here knows once a month we're going to go in and meet with a pastor, and he's going to kind of find out what's up with this thing. So that's important. And the staff also, we meet every week for what we call our huddle time of leadership, that we come together. So the group of leaders that we call our servant team, or what most people would call the staff, we have a weekly accountability meeting corporately together, and then we have a monthly accountability meeting every month. But let's think about it not only just in regards to staff, but let's talk about just volunteer leadership. You know what? You still need to do that. You still need to set up times where you bring people in and you talk to them. How's it going? What's going on? How we doing? Now let's go back to the position profile that we talked about when we were doing our enlistment or our interview. If you've got a person that you've interviewed or you've enlisted and they're just not doing their thing, and we all sadly have those situations. Well, if you're a good leader, you've got a file on every person you've enlisted. You go to their file, you pull it out when you have to and go, you know, we agreed with this. We talked about that you were going to have to give 2 days a week to this, and you're going to have to give 5 hours a week to this. Can you tell me what went wrong? And when you begin to talk about that and hold that person accountable, they again realize, Steph, this is important. This is not just a casual thing. And by the way, God's work is the most important work on planet Earth. And if we do that work in a level of excellence, excellence honors God and inspires people. If we would expect accountability built in plastic containers or whatever it may be in the secular world, that really, when you think about it, has no eternal value whatsoever, how much more should we do it in God's work? And I'm not talking about that we are mean or we are dictators of that, but as leaders, we have responsibility. And that responsibility is to make sure that what we're doing for God is done well and excellent. And we all know that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. And sometimes you have to bring people in and talk to them. But I would highly recommend that you make that a consistent something in your leadership life. In other words, set a time where all your leaders come together once a month or once a quarter, and you challenge them. And then there may be those, Steph, that you have to call on the phone and go, hey, can you meet with me Sunday afternoon? And you do that individually. And you sit down with them and go, man, what's the issue? And you're able to talk on a level of leadership that, to me, creates a level of integrity and a level of excellence that says, you know what, our church, we do it right here. And I want your church to do it right. And we want to do it right. And I believe that whatsoever we do, we are to do it heartily as unto the Lord and not unto men.
Absolutely.
So accountability, evaluation, and leadership is always important.
I think it just sends the message that we value our workers and our leaders, and we value the job that they're doing.
Absolutely. It also gives you a time to not just bring the weaknesses to the table, but it gives you a chance to bring the strengths and the wins to the table. To be able to say, hey, Bob, man, you're knocking it out of the park. I just want to thank you, man, for what you're doing. And, you know, everybody needs that. You know, we need to take advantage of being able to celebrate the victories. And we need to also take the advantage of adjusting our weaknesses. And you can only do that as you come together to evaluate and make everybody accountable.
Well, and in adjusting on the weaknesses, it's only fair to that person.
Oh, absolutely.
That it's not a good fit for them, that they are helped to be refitted for the area that maybe they're more called to be at, or the place that God really has for them.
Absolutely. You know, our assignment as leaders is to lead. And that's part of the process, is making sure that you have the right people in the right seat on the right bus going in the right direction. And I think that's vital and it's important.
Well, there you have it. Thank you for joining us for 6 ministry lessons, everything you ever wanted to know but no one ever told you. I hope that you'll use today's session as training for your leaders or for your church, and we would love to connect with you. So please contact us at jcimpact.org. If you enjoyed our discussion today, we'd love for you to share this link on your social media account. We'd love to continue to impact you with other resources, so don't forget to tune in for our next sessions on 6 ministry lessons.
God bless you. Thank you, Steph. Great job. We'll talk to you guys later. Hey, connect with us and let us know if you're enjoying this, and maybe we can learn from you as well.